Hi, welcome to English Hamster. Are you learning English? Great. Here we learn through stories. They are simple and interesting. You can improve English while learning knowledge. Remember to subscribe, like and comment. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to English Hamster. Today, we'll tell the story of America. Imagine a land filled with adventure, dreams, and challenges, where people from all corners of the world came together to create something incredible. Today, we are going to explore the fascinating history of the United States, a country that has been shaped by remarkable events, powerful ideas, and the spirit of its people. From the very first explorers to the powerful nation we know today, America's story is one of resilience, hope, and constant change. By the end of this journey, you'll understand how America came to be, the struggles it faced, and why it has become one of the most influential countries in the world. Let's start with the very beginning. How did it all begin? Who discovered America? A long time ago, over 15,000 years ago, people called Native Americans lived in what we now call the United States. They were the first people to call America home. These groups of people lived in different areas, and they learned how to hunt, fish, and grow their food. They built their homes and communities in a way that connected them to nature. However, the story of America that we know today really starts in 1492. An Italian explorer named Christopher Columbus set out on a journey. He was looking for a new way to reach Asia, but instead, he landed on the shores of what is now known as the Americas. This journey was funded by the King and Queen of Spain, Ferdinand and Isabella. Columbus believed he had reached India, and so he called the native people he met Indians. But Columbus wasn't the first European to reach America. A long time before, around 500 years earlier, the Vikings came to North America. They were led by a man named Leif Erikson, who reached what we now call Canada. However, their settlements didn't last, so Columbus is often remembered for bringing attention to the Americas. After Columbus, more explorers came to the Americas. Countries like Spain, France, and England sent ships to explore and take control of the land. Spain focused on what is now South and Central America, where they found gold and silver. Meanwhile, England and France started building colonies in North America. When the Europeans arrived, they brought many changes. They introduced new plants, animals, and tools to the land. But sadly, they also brought diseases. These diseases killed many of the Native Americans who had lived here for thousands of years. This marked the beginning of a very difficult and painful relationship between the settlers and the native people. The first settlers in America. In 1607, the English founded their first permanent settlement in America. This settlement was called Jamestown, and it was located in Virginia. The people who came to Jamestown faced many challenges. There were terrible winters, they suffered from sickness, and they often didn't have enough food. Despite these struggles, they managed to survive. Soon, other colonies were founded along the east coast of America. People from Europe came to these colonies looking for a better life. One of the most famous groups to make the journey was the Pilgrims. They sailed to America in 1620 on a ship called the Mayflower. They were escaping religious persecution in England and hoped to find freedom to worship as they wished. When they arrived, they settled in what is now Massachusetts. They celebrated the first Thanksgiving with the help of the Native Americans who showed them how to survive in the new land. By the 1700s, America had become a land of opportunity. Many people from Europe believed they could find freedom, land, and a new life here. However, life in the colonies was not always easy. The colonies in America were divided into 3 regions. The New England colonies, such as Massachusetts and Connecticut, were known for their forests and small farms. These communities worked together to survive, and life here was often hard during the winter months. The middle colonies, like New York and Pennsylvania, were known as the bread basket because of the crops they grew, such as wheat and grain. These colonies were also home to many different cultures and religions. The southern colonies, like Virginia and Georgia, had large farms called plantations. The farmers grew crops like tobacco and cotton. Unfortunately, the hard work on these plantations was done by enslaved Africans, which is a sad part of America's history. Life in these colonies wasn't easy for the settlers. Many people had to build their homes, grow their food, and deal with the challenges of the harsh winters. Children often helped their parents on the farm, and schools were rare. Only a few children could learn to read and write. Despite all the struggles, the settlers were hopeful. They had come to America to find freedom and better opportunities than they had in Europe. Conflict with Britain. Even though the colonies were far away, they were still ruled by Britain. The King of England, King George III, made the laws for the colonies, and the settlers had to pay taxes to Britain. Over time, the colonists began to feel unhappy about this. They didn't have any say in the British government, so they protested by saying, "No taxation without representation." This meant they didn't want to pay taxes unless they had a voice in making the laws. One of the most famous protests was the Boston Tea Party in 1773. During this event, a group of colonists dressed as Native Americans snuck onto British ships and threw boxes of tea into the water. They were protesting the tax on tea. In the years that followed, the relationship between the colonists and Britain continued to get worse. The colonists wanted to have their own government, and they began to fight for independence. This led to the start of the American Revolution. The road to independence. By the mid-1700s, the colonists were fed up with being controlled by Britain. They wanted to make their own laws and decisions without interference from the British king. In 1775, this anger turned into war. The war between the colonies and Britain is known as the American Revolution. The colonists were led by brave figures like George Washington, who became the leader of the American Army. Another key figure was Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence. This important document, written on July 4, 1776, declared that the colonies were no longer part of Britain. It stated that all people had the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This was a bold decision, as the colonies were now at war with one of the most powerful countries in the world. The war was difficult for the colonists. The British Army was large, well-trained, and had many weapons, while the American colonists were just regular people with little military training. However, the colonists believed in their cause of freedom, and they received help from France, which provided soldiers, weapons, and ships. The war was long, but the Americans finally won an important battle at Yorktown, Virginia, in 1781. 2 years later, in 1783, Britain officially recognized the United States as an independent country. The United States is born. After the war, the leaders of the new country set to work creating the Constitution. The Constitution is a set of rules that explains how the government of the United States should work. They also elected George Washington as the first president in 1789. This was the start of a new country built on the principles of freedom, equality, and democracy. However, the promises of freedom and equality did not apply to everyone. Enslaved people, women, and Native Americans were not treated equally, and it would take many more years of struggle to achieve true equality for all people. The expansion of the United States. After the war, the United States was still a small country. It consisted of just 13 states along the East Coast, but Americans had big dreams for the future. They wanted to expand westward and explore the vast land of North America. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson made an important decision. He bought a large piece of land from France. This land was called the Louisiana Purchase, and it doubled the size of the United States. The land stretched from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains, and it opened up many opportunities for farming, trading, and exploring. To learn more about this land, President Jefferson sent two explorers, Lewis and Clark, on a journey. With the help of a Native American woman named Sacagawea, they traveled across rivers, mountains, and plains, meeting Native American tribes and mapping the land. The push westward. The idea of moving west was called manifest destiny. Many Americans believed that it was their destiny to spread across the entire continent. Families packed their belongings and traveled in covered wagons to find new homes in the West. They faced many dangers along the way, such as bad weather, wild animals, and difficult land. However, this expansion was not fair to everyone. Native American tribes were forced off their lands and moved to reservations. This caused many conflicts, and it was a painful time for the Native people whose lives were forever changed. The rise of slavery. As America grew, so did its economy. The southern states became wealthy from large farms called plantations, where crops like cotton, tobacco, and rice were grown. But this wealth came at a high cost. The plantation owners used enslaved Africans to work the fields. Enslaved people were taken from their homes in Africa and brought to America under terrible conditions. They were treated as property, not as human beings. They worked long hours in the fields, living in poor conditions, with little to no rights or freedom. A divided nation. By the middle of the 1800s, America was divided. The North and South had very different ideas about slavery. The North believed that slavery was wrong and wanted to end it, while the South believed that slavery was necessary for their economy. The disagreement between the North and South became stronger over time, leading to tension and division. The people of the North and South started to feel as if they were living in two separate countries. Many people fought against slavery. One of the most famous anti-slavery leaders was Harriet Tubman, an escaped slave who helped many others escape to freedom through a secret network called the Underground Railroad. Another important figure was Frederick Douglass, a former slave who became a powerful writer and speaker, sharing his experiences and speaking out against slavery. The road to the Civil War. By the 1860s, the conflict between the North and South was at its breaking point. The Southern states wanted to keep slavery, while the North wanted to stop it. In 1861, the Southern states decided to leave the United States and form their own country called the Confederacy. This started the Civil War. The Civil War was not just about slavery. It was also about whether the United States should remain as one country or split into two. However, the issue of slavery was at the heart of the conflict. President Abraham Lincoln led the North, believing in keeping the country together and ending slavery. The Civil War was a long and bloody conflict that lasted from 1861 to 1865. It caused immense suffering, but it also brought hope for change. In 1863, President Lincoln made a significant decision. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which declared that all enslaved people in the Confederate States were free. This was an important turning point, but real freedom wouldn't come until after the war. In 1865, the North won the Civil War. The Southern states rejoined the United States, and slavery was officially abolished with the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. This was a major victory, but the fight for equality was far from over. Reconstruction and the struggle for equality. After the Civil War, the United States entered a difficult time known as Reconstruction. This was a period when the country tried to rebuild and repair the damage caused by the war. The 13th Amendment had abolished slavery, but African Americans were still not treated equally. They faced many challenges, such as racism, poverty, and unfair laws. During Reconstruction, the U.S. government passed new laws to help African Americans. The 14th Amendment gave them citizenship, and the 15th Amendment gave African American men the right to vote. For a short time, African Americans were able to hold political positions, and some even started schools to help their communities. However, many white Southerners did not want African Americans to have equal rights. They created new laws, called Jim Crow laws, to keep African Americans separate from white people. These laws made it difficult for African Americans to have the same opportunities as white people. They could not go to the same schools, eat at the same restaurants, or live in the same neighborhoods. Despite these challenges, many African Americans continued to fight for their rights. Leaders like Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois had different ideas about how to achieve equality. Washington believed that African Americans should focus on getting an education and working hard to improve their lives. Du Bois, on the other hand, believed that African Americans should demand their rights and equality right away. The Industrial Revolution. In the late 1800s, America began to change again. This time, it was through the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was a period when machines and factories started to change the way people worked. Many people moved from farms to cities to work in factories, where they built railroads, made steel, and created new inventions. Some of the biggest inventions of this time included the telephone, invented by Alexander Graham Bell, and the light bulb, invented by Thomas Edison. These inventions made life easier for many people. Factories began to grow, and the country became more connected as railroads stretched across the nation. But not everything was perfect. Factory workers often worked long hours in dangerous conditions. Many were immigrants who had come to America seeking a better life, but they still faced hard lives. The gap between the rich and the poor grew wider. Immigrants played a big role in building America during this time. People came from many different countries, including Italy, Ireland, and China. They worked in factories, helped build railroads, and became part of American society. But despite their hard work, many immigrants faced discrimination and lived in poor conditions. The rise of cities. As the Industrial Revolution grew, so did America's cities. Cities like New York, Chicago, and Boston became much larger. Many people moved to the cities because they wanted to work in factories and have better opportunities. Life in the cities was fast-paced and exciting, but it also had its challenges. People lived in crowded neighborhoods with little space, and many families struggled to make ends meet. Despite these difficulties, the cities became centers of culture and innovation. People from all over the world came together in these cities, bringing their different languages, food, and traditions. This helped create a unique, diverse culture in America that is still present today. The rise of segregation. While many things were changing in America, racism and segregation were still major problems. African Americans, even though they were free, continued to face discrimination, especially in the South. In addition to the Jim Crow laws, there were also many other ways African Americans were treated unfairly. In the early 1900s, leaders like Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. began to challenge segregation and fight for civil rights. In 1954, the U.S. Supreme Court made an important decision in the case of Brown v. Board of Education. This decision said that segregation in schools was unconstitutional and ordered schools to integrate. This was just the beginning of the civil rights movement, which would continue to fight for equal rights for African Americans. In 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. led the March on Washington, where he gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed, which made discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin illegal. The Great Depression. In the 1920s, America was experiencing a time of great growth and excitement. But by the end of the decade, things started to fall apart. In 1929, the stock market crashed, and the country entered a period of economic hardship called the Great Depression. The Great Depression was the worst economic crisis in American history. Many businesses went bankrupt, and millions of people lost their jobs. People stood in long lines to get food, and many became homeless. The Great Depression was a difficult time for everyone, but it also led to important changes in the government and the economy. In 1933, Franklin D. Roosevelt became president and introduced the New Deal. The New Deal was a series of programs designed to help people and rebuild the economy. Roosevelt created jobs for people to build roads, schools, and bridges, and he introduced Social Security to help older people who couldn't work anymore. World War II and America's rise to power. In the 1940s, America faced another major challenge, World War II. At first, America stayed out of the war, but in 1941, Japan attacked a U.S. naval base in Hawaii called Pearl Harbor. The next day, America declared war on Japan and its allies. During the war, Americans worked together to support the military. Women worked in factories, and men fought in the army. The war was long and difficult, but in 1945, America and its allies won the war. After the war, America became one of the most powerful countries in the world. Its economy grew stronger, and its military was unmatched. America's role in the world. After World War II, the world was divided into two main powers, the United States and the Soviet Union. These two countries became rivals during a period called the Cold War. The Cold War was not fought with weapons, but with ideas, technology, and influence. During this time, America competed with the Soviet Union in a race to explore space. In 1969, the U.S. became the first country to land a man on the moon. This achievement was a symbol of America's strength and leadership in the world. America also played a key role in helping countries rebuild after the war. It created the Marshall Plan, which gave financial aid to countries in Europe to help them recover. America in the modern era. In the decades following World War II, America experienced tremendous growth and change. The country became a global leader in technology, culture, and politics, but it also faced new challenges, such as racial inequality, the Vietnam War, and changing social norms. The 1960s were a time of great social change. The civil rights movement continued to fight for equality, with leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks inspiring millions. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed, making it illegal to discriminate based on race, religion, or gender. This was an important victory for African Americans and other marginalized groups. However, the struggle for equality didn't end there. In the 1970s, women began to push for equal rights, including the right to equal pay and better opportunities in the workplace. The feminist movement gained momentum, and in 1972, the Equal Rights Amendment was introduced, which aimed to guarantee equal rights for all Americans, regardless of sex. Although it was not passed, it sparked a national conversation about gender equality. The Vietnam War. In the 1960s and 1970s, the United States was involved in a long and controversial war in Vietnam. The war was part of the larger Cold War conflict between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. Many Americans believed it was important to stop the spread of communism, so the U.S. supported the South Vietnamese government in its fight against the Communist North. However, the war was extremely difficult, and many Americans questioned whether it was worth fighting. Protests against the war grew across the country, especially among young people. The Vietnam War led to the loss of many lives and had a lasting impact on American society. The U.S. eventually withdrew from Vietnam in 1975, and the war ended in a victory for North Vietnam. Economic struggles and recovery. In the 1970s, America also faced economic struggles. Inflation, rising oil prices, and high unemployment led to a period of economic uncertainty. Many Americans found it hard to make ends meet, and the government had to take steps to address these challenges. In the 1980s, under President Ronald Reagan, the country began to recover. Reagan introduced new policies that focused on reducing taxes and limiting government spending. This period is often referred to as the Reagan Revolution because of the changes it brought to American politics and economics. The Cold War ends. The Cold War, which had lasted for nearly 50 years, came to an end in the late 1980s and early 1990s. The Soviet Union, once America's greatest rival, began to collapse under the weight of economic problems and political changes. In 1991, the Soviet Union officially dissolved, and many of its former republics became independent. The end of the Cold War marked the beginning of a new era for America. The United States was now the world's sole superpower, with unmatched military strength and economic influence. However, this new position came with its own set of challenges, including how to maintain peace in a rapidly changing world. The rise of technology and the Internet. In the 1990s and 2000s, America experienced another huge transformation. The rise of the Internet and new technologies changed the way people lived and worked. Companies like Microsoft, Apple, and Google became leaders in the technology industry, and the Internet became an essential part of daily life. The development of the Internet led to an explosion of information and communication. People could now connect with others across the world, shop online, and access nearly any piece of information they wanted with just a few clicks. Technology created new jobs, industries, and opportunities, but it also raised questions about privacy, security, and the digital divide. September 11, 2001. On September 11, 2001, America faced one of the darkest days in its history. Terrorists from the group Al-Qaeda hijacked planes and carried out attacks on the World Trade Center in New York City and the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Nearly 3,000 people died in the attacks, and the country was shocked and devastated. In response, the U.S. launched the War on Terror, which included military actions in Afghanistan and Iraq. The events of September 11 changed America in many ways, from the way people traveled to the way the country approached security and foreign policy. America's influence on the world. Despite the challenges it faced, America continued to play an important role in global affairs. The U.S. became a leader in international organizations like the United Nations and NATO. It also worked to spread democracy and human rights around the world, often through diplomacy, trade, and military alliances. American culture continued to influence the world, too. Movies, music, fashion, and technology from the U.S. reached millions of people in every corner of the globe. Hollywood movies, such as those from the Marvel Universe, and artists like Michael Jackson and Beyoncé became global icons. American technology companies like Apple and Facebook became household names, and the world's economy became more connected than ever before. Challenges of the 21st century. As America moved into the 21st century, it faced new challenges, both at home and abroad. The country continued to deal with issues like income inequality, healthcare, climate change, and political division. The growing gap between the rich and the poor was a major concern, as was the cost of healthcare and the need for reforms in the system. Climate change also became a growing issue. Many Americans, as well as people around the world, began to realize that the environment was in danger. The U.S. government and private companies started investing more in clean energy, such as solar and wind power, in an effort to reduce pollution and protect the planet. The changing role of America. As the world continued to change, so did the role of the United States. It was no longer the only superpower in the world. New powers, such as China and India, began to rise, and the global balance of power started to shift. Despite these changes, America remained a key player in world politics, technology, and business. The U.S. continued to be a land of opportunity, attracting immigrants from all over the world. Immigrants came to America to escape poverty, war, and persecution, hoping to build a better life for themselves and their families. This diversity continued to be one of America's greatest strengths, as people from many different backgrounds came together to create a unique and dynamic society. The American dream. One of the most powerful ideas that America is known for is the American dream. This is the belief that anyone, no matter where they come from, can succeed in America through hard work and determination. The idea of the American dream has inspired millions of people from around the world to come to the United States, hoping for a better life. Many immigrants have arrived in America seeking freedom, safety, and new opportunities. They believe that with hard work and hope, they can build a better future for themselves and their children. The success stories of immigrants, like those of famous business leaders or individuals who have overcome great challenges, are powerful reminders of what is possible in America. However, the American dream is not always easy to achieve. While many people find success, others face obstacles such as poverty, racism, and lack of access to education. The fight for equality continues, and the country works toward making the American dream a reality for everyone, regardless of their background. The role of young people. Today, young people in America continue to play an important role in shaping the country's future. They are passionate about creating change and making the world a better place. Many young Americans are focused on issues like climate change, social justice, and equality. They are using their voices to demand a better future and push for change in areas like politics, technology, and the environment. The internet and social media have given young people a powerful platform to share their ideas and connect with others. Movements like Black Lives Matter, environmental activism, and LGBTQ+ rights have gained momentum in recent years, with young people leading the charge for change. These movements have brought attention to important issues, and young people are challenging old systems to build a more inclusive and fair society. America's future. The future of America is full of possibilities. The country is constantly changing, growing, and adapting to new challenges. From advancements in technology to the fight for social equality, America's future depends on the efforts of its people. New technologies, like artificial intelligence, space exploration, and renewable energy, will shape the next chapter in America's history. The U.S. continues to be a leader in innovation, with companies and research institutions working on solutions to problems like climate change, diseases, and poverty. America's youth will continue to be at the forefront of these advancements, driving progress and finding new ways to solve the world's most pressing challenges. At the same time, America will continue to face challenges. Political division, economic inequality, and social issues will require ongoing attention and action. However, the spirit of resilience and hope that has defined America throughout its history will remain strong. The country will continue to learn from its mistakes, grow, and strive to become a more inclusive and fair society. Unity in diversity. One of America's greatest strengths is its diversity. People from all over the world have come to America and contributed to its growth and success. This diversity is celebrated in many ways, from multicultural festivals to national holidays like Thanksgiving and the 4th of July. America is often referred to as a melting pot, where different cultures, traditions, and ideas come together to create something unique. The diversity of America has made it a global leader in culture, technology, and business. American movies, music, food, and fashion are enjoyed by people worldwide. The country's universities attract students from every corner of the globe, making America a hub for learning and innovation. As America continues to grow and change, It will be important to embrace its diversity and continue to build a society where everyone has the opportunity to succeed. The country's strength lies in its ability to bring together people from different backgrounds and create a unified, vibrant nation. Why is America so inspiring? America's story is one of resilience, courage, and hope. Despite its struggles, the country has always found ways to overcome challenges and continue to grow. The idea of freedom, the pursuit of happiness, and the belief that anyone can achieve success have inspired millions of people around the world. America's commitment to innovation, its role in global leadership, and its fight for equality make it an inspiring place. The country has faced wars, economic crises, and social divisions, but it has always emerged stronger, with new lessons learned and a renewed commitment to progress. The story of America is far from over. The challenges of today will shape the future, and the efforts of individuals, communities, and young people will continue to make a difference. With its diverse population, strong economy, and spirit of innovation, America will remain a land of opportunity where dreams can come true. The history of the United States is one of great struggles, triumphs, and transformations. From the early days of Native American tribes to the arrival of European explorers, from the American Revolution to the Civil War, from the Industrial Revolution to the rise of modern technology, America has always been a place of change. Today, the United States continues to face challenges, but its people are determined to make the country better for future generations. The American dream remains alive, and the hope for a better future continues to inspire people around the world. As America moves forward, it will continue to be a place where anything is possible, and where the pursuit of freedom, equality, and happiness guides the way.
Hey, if you learned something new today, please give this video a like. Write your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really helps to create more English videos for you. Thank you. See you next time. Bye.